Practiced that last week.
This whole thing.
Dan is going to introduce Barbara.
I was just sitting here having such a good time.
I knew it, Ann.
I was so moved by the music, I lost my place. I know that most of you know Reverend Barbara White, but I wanted to make sure that you understand her credentials today. So she was ordained as a religious science minister in 1999 when she was 12. That's now the Centers for Spiritual Living, CSL. She was the senior minister of CSL in Downey, California, and later the senior minister at CSL in Bakersfield, California. Fortunately, we got her back to Texas. She's been a frequent contributor to the Science of Mind magazine and was a featured contributor to the book, New Thought, A Practical Spirituality. She's the author of Imagine the Possibilities, an inspirational guide to daily living. In 2002, Reverend White was inducted into the Martin Luther King Board of Preachers, Morehouse College, Atlanta, Georgia. Upon returning to Dallas in 2016, Reverend White has spoken at Unity of Dallas a number of times, as well as Unity on Greenville, and she has taught numerous Seekers classes at Unity of Dallas, and we are blessed today to welcome back Reverend Barbara White.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you. Thank you, Ann, and what a wonderful choir. Let's give another hand for this choir. Yeah. And for Philip, who's done an amazing job. He's really the choir director, if you didn't know who Philip was. Well, good morning, and if you're new here, welcome. I don't know who is, and I won't ask you to raise your hand, but you're so welcome, and I hope you enjoy the service. You're in the right place, the right space this morning. There are no mistakes that you decided to come. And I hope you'll have a cup of coffee with us afterwards in Fellowship Hall, and I'd like to meet you if that's possible. So it's a beautiful morning. Let's start with a little meditation. It's my favorite one. So hopefully I have it. Okay, so let's just take some deep breaths. We're filled with music and we're filled with the Spirit. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Take a deep breath with me. Just feel the comfort of the 23rd Psalm. Never be forsaken, never be forgotten. Even through the valley of the shadow of death, no matter what that death looks like for us, God is there. I will never leave or forsake you, for I am with you always. And another deep breath. Thank you. I want to also thank Miss Lynn because she has provided the palms. I don't know if Miss Lynn is back here in here today or not. Oh, she's in Sunday school. She does wonderful things here, and sometimes I think we don't see her enough to appreciate her. But I will tell her, and maybe anybody that sees her after, thank you for the work she did with the palms, and that each one of us got a palm to take home. And I don't know if Randy Sitzman is back here or not, I can't see. But that sign, aren't you pleased with that sign? As I drive down Hillcrest going north and come down Forest going west, that sign just blinks. It calls me in, come. A great service here. So thank you, Randy. Okay, so let's start with a little joke. There was a young man who just got his driver's license, and he was so excited. So he went to his dad and he said, Dad, you know, I've got my driver's license now, and I'd really like to start driving the car around. And his dad said, Son, that's fine. But in order to do so, he said, you need to bring up your grades. He said, you need to read your Bible every single day, and you need to cut your hair. So a couple weeks passed, and the young man came all excited, and he said, Dad, I'm ready. I am ready to drive the car. And he said, I brought up my grades. You can see my report card. He said, I've read my Bible every single day. And his dad said, Son, what about your hair? You were supposed to get your hair cut. And he said, well, I've given that a lot of thought, Dad. He said, Moses had long hair. Samuel had long hair. Jesus had long hair. So why can't I? His father said, you're welcome to. He said, but remember, they walked everywhere they went. Oh. So how beautiful. Ida mentioned, I don't know where Ida is sitting right now, right there. She mentioned, I thought she really gave the sermon, so we'll just kind of reiterate what she said. You know, this is a philosophy. It's a faith and it's a way of life. It's not a dogma. It is not locked in to tell us what we can and what we can't do. But it can make wonderful suggestions and thoughts for us to be able to embody the Christ life within us. Because so often people run around or go around their whole life thinking that they are a sinner and that there's a God somewhere out there judging everything that they do, and if they're not good, they'll burn in hell. And that's really the truth. I was brought up in such a faith. So as a child, I just had such shame because I knew what a sinner I was. But we come into unity and we find, or we come into metaphysics, that there is no such thing. Sin is a mistake. That is how it's translated, number one. And we come in as original blessings. We are a blessing to life itself from the moment we are born. That is our charge. And I truly believe, and Charles Fillmore was so ahead of his time, he too believed that we come in, we choose to come in at this time. There are no mistakes. And we choose to be the light. We choose to be a living blessing. You know, the world needs us. It needs our light. It needs our love. And it needs the truth that, first of all, we've got a choice. Do we have big problems? Yeah, well, sure. But do we have a big God? Do we have a God that is bigger than our problems? And that's something maybe ask ourselves every day when we kind of, problems come up. We wake up in the morning, right? And everybody's happy. And then we think, oh, wait. I know there's something I have to worry about. Oh, you know about that too, huh? that the worry starts. And maybe stop in that middle and think, is my worry bigger than my God? The God of all creation? The God of perfect wisdom, the infinite intelligence that governs this universe? Is my worry really bigger than that God? Or can I turn it over to the Good Shepherd that has promised, I will be with you. Even to the end of time, I am with you. So as we come to this day, Charles Fillmore called Lent the time of personal transformation. It gives each one of us a chance these 40 days to review our lives, to see how much closer we can come to that resurrection, to the total upliftment of our lives and the meaning of our lives. So as we take this walk on this last week of Lent, Palm Sunday, this beautiful Sunday, and we see this magnificent man who everybody thought was going to be the Savior, the King of the Jews. But that was not his intention. He did not come to have people service him. He came, as you and I have come, to be of service. That's our job, to be of service to others, to get out of ourselves long enough to think of, what a concept, to think about another person, right? It's so easy to get so self-involved. And he never said, worship me, not one time in the New Testament. What he said was 21 times, he said, follow me, follow me, see what I do. And he said, and you can do the same. He said, you can do more. He invited us into this divine sonship, this oneness with him. Eric Butterworth said he wanted to prove the principle as he walked into Jerusalem that day, that the kingdom of God is within us, and that no matter what trials we are going through, there is always a triumph. Think about that. No matter what we're going through, with God, all things are possible, and there is a triumph. And the other thing is, where there's a cross, and we know he's walking toward that cross, and he knew he was, but within the cross is always the resurrection, and he knew that. So as we walk with him, as Ida so beautifully said earlier in her introduction or her talk, let's picture ourselves on that Sunday in Jerusalem. It's a tropical climate. And so there he was. He didn't choose to ride a white horse. He chose to ride a colt, a donkey. And here were all of these people saying, Hosanna, King of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. And all the time, he knew what they were saying, and he took it into a certain amount. To a certain extent, he was grateful, I'm sure, but he also knew this was not what he came for. He came to prove a point that in the cross, there is resurrection. So as he came forth that day, knowing what was lying ahead of him, could he have turned around and turned back? Of course he could have. But he came to prove a principle that God is within every person, and that no matter what we're going through, whatever cross, there is a resurrection. So let's take a look at a few of his days this week, what he was up to, what he was doing. So on Monday, let's see, that was Sunday. Let's go to Tuesday. He rested on Monday. He went back to his dear friends. He went back to Bethany. He went back to Mary and Martha and his dear friend Lazarus. On Tuesday, he was walking with his disciples, and there was a fig tree that normally would have been all in bloom, but it was withered. And you know, right now as we're driving, we still see some trees that are black and withered. And he cursed it, and he cursed it. But he wasn't just cursing the tree. It had a deeper meaning. You know, there's a story about a little girl, and her mother was bringing home a new baby, and this little girl just waited for this little boy and waited, and those 9 months seemed like forever. And when they brought the baby home and had him in his crib, she kept saying, I need to go see him. I need to go talk to him. Well, they were thinking, you know, she was 5. Well, what does she want to say? What does she want to talk? Is she going to pick him up? You know, it could be dangerous. So they pretty much kept her away. And finally, she was almost in tears. She said, I have got to talk to him. You don't understand. I must talk to him. And so finally they let her in the room. They had the door cracked so they could see. And she walked up to that crib and she said, quick, tell me about God. I'm forgetting. Tell me what he's like. Tell me about God once more. I'm forgetting. And as Jesus looked at that fig tree, I imagine he thought the same thing, that withered fig tree, that many of us have become withered. We have truly forgotten God. We have not. The talk of this today is prepare the way. We hadn't prepared the way. We were still frozen in that tree that hadn't bloomed yet. In fact, it looked like it was withering and dying. You know, the great quarterback, Peyton Manning, at his retirement, he said something that really stuck with me. He said, I may not have been the greatest quarterback that has ever played the game. He said, but nobody ever came to a game better prepared than I did. Francis Scoville Shin, a great metaphysical writer, made the comment that this is the game of life. How do we play it? How prepared are we to walk this week, to walk from triumph to crucifixion without losing our faith, without saying, God, why have you forsaken me? Which Jesus did on Thursday. But how can we better prepare ourselves for this week? We don't want to wither. And sometimes it feels like, my God, where are you? All of this is going on in my life, and I feel small. I feel like you've moved. Well, God never moves. We move, right? We move. So preparing this week, do more of your meditation. If it's 5 minutes, even if you can give it 6 minutes a day, pray. Read your unity material. It is the truth. This is a truth teaching with a capital T. This is the teaching of Jesus. It is not the teaching about Jesus. It is the teaching of Jesus. And if we read the Bible and we say, oh, well, that's what happened to them, we've missed it. Because the Bible is your story and the Bible is my story. And as we read the lives of Jesus and the apostles, that is our story too, he's telling us. You can do this and greater, he said. And when they asked him, Master, who are your brothers and who are your sisters? He looked out at this crowd, and this great man opened his arms, and he said, you are my brothers, and you are my sisters. So he invited us into this Christhood with him. His last name wasn't Christ. The Christ means the mystic within us, the Son of God within us, the divine within us. So each one of us have that Christ within us, waiting to burst forth on Easter Sunday in a higher resurrection, taking us, as Thoreau said, into a greater order of beings. That's what we're preparing for. Isn't that a great thought? To join a greater order of beings, to join with all those that have gone before us, to join with the Fillmores, and to join with Jesus and Buddha, to elevate our consciousness up to the point, here I am, Lord. Here I am, Lord. I am ready. I am here for you. I am here to serve, because that is what we're here for. So he saw the fig tree and he was angry. And I'm sure that anger, well, we'd hate to think of, I use the word hate, I don't mean to, of being angry. But he saw the withering of souls around him, and that's what he was upset about. We don't want to wither. This is our week to bloom, just as spring is blooming outside. Every time you see a new tulip or the azaleas coming out, think that is me. I am blooming through this week. This is the week I walk with Jesus. This is the week I talk with Jesus. This is the week I am here for Jesus. I am here to walk the path with him every step of the way. So on Monday, Tuesday, he continued his path into Jerusalem. And he entered the temple, the courtyard. What he found was they were gambling. Pharisees, Sadducees, they were all gambling, throwing money around. And again, he was furious. He kicked them all out of the temple. Well, what does that mean for you and I? And all I could think of is, what do I need to kick out, so to speak, of the temple of my mind? What is it that you need to take out of the temple of your mind that is cluttered with whatever thoughts of gambling, and I don't mean actually gambling, but thoughts of taking us down, thoughts of I'm not enough, thoughts of if only I would have done this, my life would have been different. If only, what if? All the thoughts, fear, doubt, anxiety. Turn on the TV and watch what happens to your consciousness. Boy, right down. So what can we do this week? Just as Jesus cleared the courtyard of the temple, what is it that you and I need to get rid of out of our consciousness this week? Is it, I'm not good enough? I'm not good enough to truly walk with this great man. I'm not good enough to truly resurrect myself. Wash it away. You are a blessing. You are a light that comes into every man and woman that you meet. You know, there is a great story about a man by the name of Alexander Papaderos, and he had a retreat center at the top of a mountain in Crete, where one of the worst wars of World War II was fought. It was a bloodbath. The Cretes, they lost so many lives. And this was an institute of peace. And people, once a year, he would have a seminar. And philosophers, doctors, teachers, educators, writers from all over different walks of life and all over the world would come for those 2 weeks to spend with Dr. Papaderos and discuss peace on earth, peace. And so when he was finished with the lecture, Dr. Papaderos was always known for, at the end of he would say, "Are there any questions?" Well, Robert Fulghum, some of you have read his book, his many books, happened to be there. And he said, "Dr. Papaderos," he said, "I have a question." Well, the class laughed. They were getting their books up. They thought it was rhetorical. And Dr. Papaderos said to them, he said, "I will tell you the meaning of life." He said, many years ago, as the war finished, he said, I was riding my bike. I was a young boy. And there was a motorcycle accident over to the side. The motorcycle was decimated. And he said, but I got off my bike and I walked over there. And he said, there was a mirror that had been shattered. And he said, I looked at that mirror. And he said, even as young as I was, he said, I knew that mirror had a meaning for me. So he picked up a piece of that mirror and he rubbed it against a stone, and so it wasn't dangerous. He put it in his pocket. And he said, from time to time, I would take that mirror out and I would look at it. And I would think, what does this mean to me? And he said, in that moment, I realized what that mirror meant to me was, I am to shine the light of that mirror into every dark place I go the rest of my life. Where there is darkness, he said, let me bring light. Let me be the light. Let me be the light that guides others into peace, to find themselves again, to realize who they are, which is more than they could ever imagine, because they are the living God in action. And at that point, Dr. Papaderos took out the mirror and he shined it through the class. And then he said, are there any questions? And I love that story. We are the mirror. And maybe this week, every time we look in our own mirror, and we will be looking in the mirror to comb our hair, brush our teeth, see how lovely we look, or whatever it is, we can remember, as I go forth to my day, through my day, I am the light. Get rid of anything else that is in the corridor of your mind that tells you anything else, because it's a lie, and it's the father of lie. We are here as lights unto the world. We are here to shine our light, as Jesus did so magnificently, to others as we travel through the days, the years of our lives. You know, our children will never remember the money we leave them. That'll be gone in, what, a year? But what they will remember about us is, you know, when I was in a dark place, she was the light. He was the light. He gave me encouragement. He gave me strength, which is one of the 12 powers. He gave me hope. She gave me hope when I had none. So that's what we will be remembered, and that's what Jesus was saying. Get out of the temple. Get out of the temple. Get out of the temple of our minds that tell us anything, that we are the beloved of God and that we are here on earth to represent the presence of God to all that we meet. On Wednesday, Jesus took that day off. And on Thursday, this was the day, wasn't it? He sent his disciples before him they were preparing for the Passover. And he said, prepare that upper room, he said, for our supper tonight. So when he got there, he already knew Peter was going to deny him 3 times. He already had that knowledge. He already knew that Judas had sold him out for 30 pieces of silver. It didn't matter. He loved them all. And what he did shocked them, because only servants used to do this. He took a pail of water and he bent down and he washed their feet. Just think of that. A friend of mine, when a minister, a friend really some years ago, I was having some issues getting through a divorce with the children's father, who I now dearly love. He's passed away. But she said, all right, I want you to get a vision. Could you wash his feet? And I thought she lost her mind. I mean, really? And yet how true. Do we love each other enough that we could actually take a pail of water and wash their feet? And of course, in those days, they walked barefoot or in light sandals, so their feet were always dusty and probably dirty, and that was a custom to always wash their feet. But it is a symbol to you and I. Could I wash their feet? Could I wash their feet knowing that one would betray me 3 times, one that was the closest to me 3 times, and one would sell me out for 30 pieces of silver and bring me to my death? So after supper, he asked 2 of his disciples, he asked John and James, the sons of Zebedee, to go to the Garden of Gethsemane with him and pray. And as he went to pray, he asked them to stay awake so that they could be the prayer, be the, so to speak, the practitioner with him that was holding the light. And he went and he prayed. And he said, God, if it is possible, please let this pass from me. And then he went out to see James and John. They were sound asleep. And he woke them and he said, can't you even stay awake for me? And of course they woke up and he went back to pray. And again, he prayed, Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. And he went back and James and John were sound asleep. They couldn't even keep the watch with him, and he loved them anyway. And when he went back once more, they said the sweat that he was pouring down his face had turned into blood. That's how frightened he was. But he knew in his mind, in his heart of hearts, that one with God is a majority always. And we are never, ever given more than we can tolerate. Where there is a cross, there is a resurrection. And where there is upset, a trial, there is always triumph for us. And he knew that. So as he came back out of his prayer, who came but the guards? And Judas was right there with the guards. And he went up to Jesus and he kissed his cheek, because that was going to be his symbol to the guards, that this is the man. This is the man you're looking for. And at that, Peter took out his sword and he sliced the ear off of one of the guards. And Jesus told him, no, do not do that. He picked the ear up and he placed it back on the guard's ear. He healed him. And they bound his hands and he left. And so the next day, which Reverend Deb will do on Friday, Good Friday, we know what happens from there. This good man that came to be a servant to all, to tell us that the kingdom of heaven is within us, to tell us that, yes, you and I are my brothers and sisters. You too can do the things I can do, and even more. And we say, oh, that's impossible. I can't heal. I can't. There we go with the things that needs to be taken right out of the courtyard of our mind. Because we may not raise Lazarus from the dead, but through our words, we may encourage someone that just about was ready to commit suicide. And through our encouraging words, they went on with their life and lived successfully. You know, the grandchild or one of our children or friends that are so down and out, to be their inspiration and to lift. We are the hands and the feet and the mind and the heart of Jesus. So this week, let's take a walk with this man. Read through the gospel. It's easy. It's not a hard gospel to read. In fact, it was funny. Last night I was talking to a friend of mine in Chicago, and she is a devout, I'll just say it. She's a devout Catholic. I was raised a Catholic, and she goes to Mass every single day. And they have the choice between going to Mass on Saturday and Sunday. And she chose to go last night, and she called me, and she said, oh, it was a wonderful service. And I said, well, what did he talk about? What was his message? Dead silence. And I said, well, what did you get out of it? She said, I can't remember a thing he said. So I hope today, if somebody asks you what she said, I'm just going to go over real quickly. You might remember one thing, just one thing. So our lessons, the kingdom of God is within. Don't ever forget that. You walk in the walk of love. You walk in the footsteps of the greatest teacher, the greatest spiritual teacher that ever lived. And he said, come, follow me. Let's follow his footsteps this week. Let's forgive. Let's get rid of the thoughts in our minds that hamper us. And he said, as the fig tree, again, imagine the courtyard. Take a picture in your own mind that your mind is a courtyard. Is it clean? Is it sparkling? Are there beautiful palms? And are there going to be lilies there? A friend of mine said, sometimes I think about my mind, and she said it's like this. It's like South Central in LA. She said nobody would dare walk through my mind. It is so frightening. Isn't that the truth? It is for me sometimes. So through our thoughts, we're going to change, and that we love no matter what. No matter what. You know, there's a lot of difference in politics right now. There's a lot of division. We are the healers. Don't ever forget yourself. That's what we're here for. So the next time you get upset about something, or they're on another side, or we're all on the same side. We have all been to come to be a revealer of truth, to allow this magnificent God self. Jesus said that the divine kingdom is within us. Let's let that shine this week. Let's imagine walking with Jesus. Even if you imagine walking hand in hand with him as he goes through all of this, as he goes through betrayal. He goes from being the king that they thought of the Jews to the betrayal of those that he loved the most. Let's walk with him. Let's talk with him. Let's ask him for the strength of our journey. You know, Rumi, one of my favorite poets and one of my favorite sayings, he said, beyond any right doing or any wrongdoing, there's a field. He said, meet me there. Let's meet this Holy Week in that field, because that is the field of all possibilities. It is the field of all potential, and it is the field of unconditional love. What if we all joined hands and then made a chain as we joined hands with Jesus and walked with him, as the song goes, and talked to him and tell him that he is our own beloved, and that we are willing to walk with him, to walk in his footsteps, and to be ready on coming Sunday to resurrect right with him through our consciousness, through our love. And as Thoreau said, to join that field of the upper consciousness, of truly grasping, God is the very life that I am. So let's go back to Dr. Papaderos. Are there any questions?